Hey there, I'm Ann Teagarden, and this is episode 109 of the Unveiled podcast. Thanks for joining me today. You may have noticed that I haven't posted in about a month. I apologize. I think I was just a little dry, a little lack of inspiration, but I'm back and I want to finish this series that I'm doing on the keys to healthy relationships. And one of those is how do you get past a point where you're stuck, where you can't quite find agreement with your spouse? And I believe that the underlying cause is being able to see from another person's point of view. My husband and I are marriage mentors, and we often have couples coming to us stuck. They have an impasse that they just can't get past. And one of the main ways we help them is by helping them see things from the other person's point of view. Because as we know, everyone has their own opinions, likes, dislikes, and ways of thinking and doing things because God created us all unique. The problem happens when we forget that we're all unique and we begin thinking that our way is the right way or the only way. Or maybe we just forget that the other person doesn't think like we do. Maybe conscious, it may be subconscious, but it happens. I absolutely love cleaning out messy places and putting them in order. I love to sort out the junk and organize the good stuff. It brings me so much joy to see a closet or a garage go from absolute chaos to order and cleanliness. So for years, I could never understand why my husband would be so reluctant to help me clean out a closet or the garage. Why didn't he want to tackle these projects? He'd make excuses, he'd procrastinate, maybe he'd help me for 30 minutes and then say he was done when clearly it's not done. It was so frustrating. I needed his help, right? Making decisions about things that were his stuff. Well, a couple of years ago, he said to me, "You know how much you hate sitting down for a meeting about finances?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "That's how much I hate cleaning and going through stuff." Wow, that was so eye-opening for me. I actually could see it from his perspective now. I had no idea that he hated it that much. I thought that if cleaning things out and organizing them brought me so much joy, that it must bring everybody that much joy. Wrong. I was wrong. We can have such a myopic view sometimes of our situations. We just don't take the time to consider things from the other person's point of view. Sometimes it's a gender difference, right? Or it can be a personality difference, or sometimes it's just how people approach life. So you think about it. Is your spouse one of those people that approaches things from a very logical perspective? And maybe you come at things from your heart? Or maybe it's vice versa in your situation? Well, if you're a heart person, then to see it from their point of view, you have to say, okay, how would I approach this logically to try and understand how they're thinking? And if you're logical, how would I approach this from a heart perspective, right? You have to be able to imagine it from their way of thinking. But mostly we have to realize that the other person may not be wrong, just different. For example, if you like to save money and your spouse is a spender, don't try to convert them. Okay, I think that's pretty much inborn. But work together as a team to balance each other out and be thankful that they have a different strength than yours. Many times when we put ourselves in our spouse's shoes, we develop empathy, which is very helpful in a relationship. We realize maybe they're fearful or they're hurting or they're insecure. And when we begin to look at things from their perspective, then we begin to understand what's going on maybe below the surface. And then that allows us to show them compassion and empathy. 1 Peter 3:8 says this, "Finally, all of you, be like-minded, be sympathetic, love one another, be compassionate and humble." Isn't that great? Now, being like-minded doesn't mean we're going to think exactly alike. We already said that everybody thinks differently. But what it does mean is that we're unified. When you got married, you became one. And as Grant and I like to tell people, you married the package, right? You get all of that person, all of their quirks and personality. all of their strengths and weaknesses. So you need to be unified in your thinking after you see the other person's point of view, and hopefully they begin to see yours as well. We're usually busy trying to get the other person to see our point of view, but we forget to stop and think, I wonder what their point of view is. Okay, but when we do this, it allows us to be sympathetic, to love them, and to be compassionate, just as it says in 1 Peter 3:8. And then Peter also says, be humble. That's it, isn't it? Humility is at the core of admitting that maybe we aren't right. Maybe our way isn't the only way. Maybe we can learn from the other person. Or maybe together we can find a better solution that we both love. Romans 12:10 tells us, be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. Well, when we're devoted to one another, then we desire to work things out. We desire to understand where they are coming from. And when we honor one another above ourselves, we show respect for their viewpoint. Often when I'm frustrated with someone, I realize later, oh, they were just having a bad day, right? Or they were hungry, or they just misunderstood me. And when I stop and put myself in their shoes, I can see why they were acting that way. If we can do that right away, it keeps us from reacting to the situation, maybe in a way we're later going to regret. When my kids were little, I used to dump all the hardships of the day on my husband right when he walked in the door. Boom. I wanted him to listen. I wanted him to pitch in and help get dinner on the table. I wanted him to rescue me, right? Often I was hot because I was cooking in a kitchen that didn't have any air conditioning, and I was hungry. And these moments were not anything we wanted, right? They were not how we pictured his homecoming every day. Well, he began to understand that I was hungry, and that was making things worse. So he asked me, please eat a snack every afternoon before you start cooking so that you're not so hungry when I walk in the door. And that was a great idea. And I began to realize too that I was hot. So he said, hey, on the hot days, let's just go out to eat, right? Or let's just make something cold. Let's not get the kitchen all steamed up and hot. And I began to understand that he needed time to transition when he got home, right? I couldn't just hit him with stuff the moment he walked in the door. So I learned to hold my tongue and not bombard him with everything that had happened that day as soon as he walked in. I didn't get upset if he took a few moments to go change his clothes and kind of take that transition time from work, right? I stopped expecting him to rescue me when he walked in the door because he was tired from a 10-hour workday, just as tired as I was. We began to see things from the other person's point of view, and that helped us problem solve, right? So if you're having the same argument over and over again, if you're stuck in an impasse on a situation or a decision, or maybe you're stuck in a pattern of bickering and fighting, then stop and consider the other person's point of view. Put yourself in their shoes. And if it helps, literally go and put on their shoes. And you're going to realize they don't fit very well, which reminds us we're different. And one more thought before we wrap up. God has a point of view as well. It's like a third point of view, right? When Grant and I look for God's point of view on a situation and we find his point of view, then we're automatically unified and we have a better perspective that probably doesn't match either of ours. It's usually a better, higher perspective. Sometimes we get so bogged down on the little stuff and the temporary stuff, the immediate stuff, that we lose sight of the long view. We lose sight of what's really important or eternal, and God's view can help us with that. So think about it. Is the health of your marriage worth fighting over who has done more dishes this week, or whether or not the remote was put back in the right place, or whether or not to cancel Netflix or have Thanksgiving with his family, or? Is it? So in summary, when things are frustrating you, put yourself in the other person's shoes. Look at things from their perspective. Then ask God for his perspective. And finally, Look at the long-term perspective. After all, you are devoted to this person for life, so you might as well work it out together. Ephesians 4:32 says, "Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you." So let that be your guiding verse as you seek to find some common ground and mutually beneficial solutions and forgiveness for them not seeing things your way. It can be done. It does take time and humility, but both are a choice. I know you can do this. Humble yourself, and you can do this. And I'd love to hear if you have an aha moment when you begin to look at something from another person's perspective. So leave that in the comments if you would. And if this was helpful, please like it and share it with someone else. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do that so you know when I do send out new videos. Go in peace and joy.